Because of various challenges, some analysts expect growth to fall below 2%. South Korean shipbuilders won more orders in August than anyone else for a fourth month in a row. Hope for an industry that's struggled recently, and it means more jobs. And President Moon Jae-in goes ahead and appoints 7 top officials, including a controversial one, as he does so calling for reform of South Korea's prosecution and its education system. It's 4:00 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for tuning in to our afternoon newscast. I'm Devin Whiting. A cargo ship managed by South Korean firm Hyundai Glovis carrying 4,200 vehicles capsized on Sunday off the coast of the U.S. state of Georgia after a fire. 20 crew members have been rescued from the ship so far, 6 South Koreans, 13 Filipinos, and the ship's American pilot. And the U.S. Coast Guard is still trying to rescue the remaining 4 South Koreans. They're reportedly trapped inside the engine room. The ship is currently 1.6 kilometers away from the port of Brunswick in water just 11 meters deep. The cause of the accident is under investigation. America's top diplomat is hoping that North Korea and the U.S. will get back to the negotiating table soon. If they don't, President Trump, he says, would be very disappointed. Lee Sung-jae has more.
In an interview with ABC's This Week on Sunday, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo expressed hope that North Korea would return to the negotiating table in the coming days or weeks. Negotiations aimed at denuclearizing the North have stalled since the collapse of the second summit between North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and Trump in Hanoi back in February. While Kim and Trump met again in June at the border village of Panmunjom and agreed to reopen working-level talks, this has yet to happen. Pyongyang has also fired a series of short-range missiles in recent months in protest against South Korea-U.S. joint military exercises, further stalling the negotiation talks. However, Pompeo says while the short-range tests are disappointing, Kim has not violated the commitments he made to Trump. Pompeo did say that the U.S. president would be very disappointed if Kim Jong-un doesn't return to the negotiating table or conducts missile tests that are inconsistent with the agreements made by the two leaders. Pompeo also acknowledged on Friday during an interview with KCMO Radio in Kansas City that North Korea has the right to defend itself and assure Pyongyang of Washington's security guarantees should the regime dismantle its nuclear weapons program. Lee Sung-jae, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, officials in the U.S. say South Korea and Japan might decide to acquire their own nuclear weapons if the North doesn't get rid of its nukes. It's a notion that might put a little more pressure on Pyongyang to follow through. Oh Jung-hee explains.
South Korea and Japan may feel the need to develop their own nuclear weapons if they're not sure about the U.S. extended deterrence against North Korean threats. That's a message coming from both a U.S. congressional think tank and a top nuclear envoy. The U.S. Congressional Research Service released a report about non-strategic nuclear weapons last Friday. It said some South Korean politicians have highlighted the need to deploy U.S. non-strategic nuclear weapons on the Korean peninsula or develop the country's own nuclear capability in the face of imminent threats from North Korea. The claim echoes what U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun said on the same day. Speaking at the University of Michigan, Biegun floated the idea that voices could arise in South Korea and Japan, questioning until when they can depend only on U.S. extended deterrence and whether they should develop their own nuclear capabilities. Seoul and Tokyo had scrapped their plans to develop nuclear weapons in the past, trusting U.S. extended deterrence, Biegun added. Such a message from the U.S. aims to show North Korea a picture of what may happen in the future should their denuclearization talks end up as a failure. It also urges China to play a greater role, as Beijing would be most against a nuclear-armed South Korea and Japan. Biegun called on North Korea to come back to the negotiating table, stressing that it should pursue engagement with the U.S. when opportunities are given. He added that Washington is ready to engage as soon as it hears from the North. Oh Jung-hee, Arirang News.
To celebrate the 71st anniversary of North Korea's founding, Chinese President Xi Jinping sent a congratulatory message Monday to the regime's leader, Kim Jong-un. According to Pyongyang's Korean Central Television, Xi said in the message that he hopes for greater happiness for the people of the two countries by continuing their traditional friendship. Referring to the 4 visits made by Kim to China and Xi's own visit to the North in June, the Chinese president said he's delighted to see their common beliefs becoming stronger. The state-run media also reported that Russia's President Vladimir Putin sent a congratulatory message in which he described the relationship between the two countries as a constructive one based on friendship. Typhoon Lingling was one of the most powerful typhoons ever to strike South Korea, leaving at least 3 people dead over the weekend and 24 more injured. Those are the latest figures as of Sunday night from the Ministry of Interior and Safety. The injured include 13 civilians and 11 fire and police officers. Around 9,400 buildings were damaged, as were 14,000 hectares of crops. And to take a closer look at the damage, Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon visited the damaged areas earlier this morning. President Moon Jae-in is calling for a speedy reform of South Korea's prosecution and a fairer system in the education sector. He made the call this Monday while appointing 7 of his new minister-level officials, including Cho Kuk, now Justice Minister, whose nomination was controversial because of his family's alleged ethical lapses and illegal activities. Park Hee-jun has the details.
President Moon Jae-in called on Monday for the reform of 2 key fields directly related to the livelihoods of the people, the prosecution and education.
이제 남은 과제는 권력기관의 정치적 중립을 보장하고 국민의 기관으로 위상을 확고히 하는 것을 정권의 선의에만 맡기지 않고 법제도적으로 완성하는 일입니다. 국민을 좌절시키는 기득권과 불합리의 원천이 되는 제도까지 개혁해 나가겠습니다.
The remark came during a ceremony for the administration's latest cabinet shakeup, including the appointment of Justice Minister Cho Kuk, whose family members have been making headlines in an escalating nepotism scandal. The appointment of former senior presidential secretary for civil affairs Cho Kuk as the new justice minister caused an uproar among lawmakers and the public over the past month. Cho was questioned over a string of alleged misdeeds involving his family members, from preferential treatment for his daughter in the admission to renowned colleges, to his family's dubious investment in a private equity fund, to which the now justice minister had denied all allegations. Cho's wife has even been indicted on charges of document forgery. Also included in the reshuffle, Choi Ki-young takes the post of Minister of Science and ICT. Choi is an expert in intelligent semiconductors, and his appointment reflects the administration's goal of boosting domestic R&D in the semiconductor industry. Leading the Gender Equality Ministry, Lee Jung-wook, a prominent scholar in sociology and an avid advocate for women's movements, takes the helm. Eun Sung-soo, a former president of Export-Import Bank of Korea, will now lead the nation's top financial regulator, the Financial Services Commission. And Cho Sung-wook becomes the head of the Fair Trade Commission, replacing Kim Sang-jo, who is now a presidential chief of staff for policy. A lawyer specializing in freedom of the press, Han Sang-hyuk, will take over to become the director of the Korea Communications Commission. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
More bad news for the already struggling Korean economy. Analysts have further lowered their forecast for GDP growth this year. Some now think growth will fall to below 2%. Lee Kyung-un reports.
The Korea Economic Research Institute now forecasts the local economy to grow 1.9% this year. That is down 0.3% from its earlier estimate in June of 2.2%. A researcher at the institute attributed the downgrade to growing uncertainties from home and abroad.
Unlike what was expected before, the U.S.-China trade war has escalated in the second half, and at the same time, there's the ongoing Seoul-Tokyo trade dispute. A lowering of the growth rate was inevitable, given the falling prices of semiconductors and growing trade uncertainties stemming from the export curbs Japan imposed in July.
Other economic think tanks have also lowered their forecasts. The Hyundai Research Institute now has the figure at 2.1%, down from 2.5% 3 months ago. And the Korea Institute of Finance last month also predicted 2.1%. Experts also blame sluggish investment and falling domestic consumption. Last month, facilities investment dropped nearly 5% on-year. Inflation, largely due to falling oil prices and weak consumer demand, turned negative last month for the first time, triggering fears of deflation. With South Korea's population rapidly aging and trade wars breaking out globally, its economic outlook is likely to remain grim for the near future. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
South Korea's shipbuilding industry has retained its top position in terms of the number of orders in August, amid signs of a recovery in that industry. Kim Yo-sun tells us more.
South Korean shipyards won orders totaling 735,000 compensated gross dollars in total between January and August. That puts Korea ahead of China, which saw $10.9 billion of orders over the same period. In the first 8 months of the year, South Korea won 24 of the 27 orders placed for LNG carriers, as well as 10 of the 17 orders placed for very large crude carriers.
The amount of orders has been steadily rising again since mid-August, leading to profitability thanks to increased unit costs and favorable foreign exchange conditions.
Accordingly, employment in the shipbuilding industry has also been on the rise, recording 110,000 after it fell to its lowest level in August last year. The industry is expected to enjoy continued growth going forward, with large-scale project orders expected to be placed by Russia, Qatar, and Mozambique. Kim Yo-sun, Arirang News.
Hyundai Motor Company and its affiliate Kia Motors ranked 5th in the global electric vehicle market for the first half of this year, up 4 spots from the end of last year. Hyundai's EV sales went up 140% on year to over 44,800 units for the first half. Hyundai attributed the rise to growing demand in Europe due to tighter emissions regulations and the growing popularity of its electric versions of SUVs, including the Hyundai Kona. The Korean carmaker's share of the global electric car market between January and June also went up over 2 percentage points on year to 6.5%. Tesla, BYD, Renault, Nissan, and SAIC were the 4 firms with the largest market share. It's time now for an in-depth look at the global markets this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Hwang Se-un, Research Fellow at the Korea Capital Market Institute. Dr. Hwang, thank you for joining us as always.
Thank you for inviting me today.
Last week was a good one for Wall Street and most Asian markets as well. The main indexes were mostly higher on Friday. Here in Korea today, we're starting the week mixed. What's the story today?
In the Wall Street, stocks closed mixed Friday after the release of disappointing jobs data, but posted back-to-back weekly gains on optimism around U.S.-China trade relations. For the week, the Dow and S&P 500 both gained at least 1.5%, while the Nasdaq climbed 1.8%. Those gains came amid hopes that the world's 2 largest economies could soon make substantial progress in de-escalating their protracted trade dispute. Hope of progress between China and the U.S. offset worries surrounding the economy. Asian stocks eked out modest gains on Monday amid a cautious market mood as investors pinned expectations on likely stimulus to support growth in the world's major economies, which showed further signs of struggle. Asian equity markets received a lift after China's central bank said on Friday it was cutting the amount of cash that banks must hold as reserves. However, gains were tempered in the wake of lackluster economic data. South Korea's Kospi rose 0.52%. Japan's Nikkei was up 0.56%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng lost 0.03% today.
Well, it's Monday, so let's take a look at what's to come this week around the world. In Europe, there's a monetary policy meeting on Thursday. What else should we watch?
The European Central Bank will hold a monetary policy meeting on Thursday. ECB is widely expected to cut the benchmark interest rate and review all of the options, including quantitative easing. Policymakers will also publish forecasts for growth and inflation. ECB President Mario Draghi will hold a press conference after the meeting. In UK, the parliament may be suspended as soon as Monday, and a bill blocking a no-deal Brexit could become law. That bill would derail Prime Minister Boris Johnson's strategy and could trigger the opposition Labour Party to agree to a general election. In the United States, August wholesale and consumer price figures due out on Wednesday. The U.S. CPI grew 0.3% in July and is expected to grow at the similar number in August. At the end of the week, August retail sales and September consumer sentiment figures will have an impact on the market.
Well, we're coming up on the Chuseok holiday this Thursday and Friday. Of course, Korean markets will be closed on those days. But ahead of that, we'll get a key monthly report on public finances from the Finance Ministry. And then Statistics Korea will have last month's employment data. What's happening this week domestically?
We have a few domestic economic events this week, but overall impact on the market is not likely to be as significant as that from events abroad. The monthly public finance published by the Ministry of Economy and Finance will be released on Tuesday. The market is interested in if the fiscal deficit continued in August. The report will announce the amount of taxes collected from January to July this year. In the August issue, taxes collected until June were 156.2 trillion won, which was 1 trillion won less than the previous year. The Statistics Korea will release jobs data for August on Wednesday. The Statistics Korea reported that the number of the employed in July increased 299,000 year-over-year basis. This was the biggest increase since January 2018. The market is interested in if the labor market continued improvement in August, and especially if the growth will exceed 300,000.
Indeed. We'll be watching those numbers when they come out. All right, Dr. Huang, thank you for getting us up to speed this afternoon. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Now, the U.S. says it's going to impose sanctions on anyone who buys oil from Iran or does any business with Iran's Revolutionary Guards. U.S. Treasury Undersecretary for Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, Sigal Mandelker, said this to reporters on Sunday. She then noted that Iranian oil sales have taken a serious nosedive because of American pressure. And the chief of the International Atomic Energy Agency said on Sunday that active cooperation from Iran is needed on its unraveling nuclear deal with world powers. The IAEA said on Saturday that it found uranium traces at an Iranian atomic warehouse, it said, and the agency is going to hold an emergency meeting on Monday. The Korean Thanksgiving holiday Chuseok is celebrated according to the lunar calendar, meaning it's a little different every year. It's coming up this Friday, a week earlier than last year and 3 weeks earlier than in 2017. So that has an effect on the kinds of gifts people get each other. Our Kim Hae-sung went out to the shops to see what people are buying.
From fruits and canned pork to health-related products, packaged gifts are on display for Chuseok, Korea's Thanksgiving holiday. This year, there are more summer fruits for fruit packaged gifts like melons and shine muscat grapes on top of the usual apples and pears, as the Chuseok holiday falls on September 13th this year, the earliest it has been since 2014. Korean beef is also a hot item. Premium Korean beef sets priced roughly between $100 and $1,000 are also on offer. At department stores, premium beef priced $3,000 saw sales soar. Pre-orders for Korean beef at supermarkets went up by double digits on year as the weather is relatively hot, meaning people prefer refrigerated beef to grill rather than buying frozen beef that is used for soup.
Sales of refrigerated meat went up to 36% in 2014 when Chuseok fell in early September. So we increased the number of refrigerated beef sets by 10% this year.
In addition, everyday items like shampoo, health-related products including vitamins and Korean ginseng products known to help boost physical and mental activity also saw sales go up.
I would like to buy health-related products like ginseng. They are pricey, but I can tell my parents like those goods.
Beef, fruits, you can't eat them all and they get spoilt. So I prefer practical goods like shampoo.
Canned luncheon meat is the #1 best-selling Chuseok gift this year. Many businesses use canned pork as the price also falls between $25 and $80 within the $80 limit that can be spent on gifts under the Improper Solicitation and Graft Act known as Kim Jongun Act. It also has a long expiration date, and this year a wider range of packaged canned meat like packaged canned pork with olive oil, seaweed, and canned tuna filled the shelves. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
Obviously, Chuseok is the time to indulge in food and drink, not only for us humans, but also for the animals we love, like at the Everland Zoo, where the animals are getting some treats of their own ahead of the holiday. Our Ji-young has more.
Chuseok will be just like any other day for the critters at South Korea's Everland Zoo, but last week, ahead of time, they had a special feast and plenty of guests to entertain. A 5-year-old red panda named Lessie is loving the special treatment. He got a traditional Korean plate called a gujeolpan, full of fruits like bananas, apples, and tomatoes. This bundle of fur perched in a tree is in an extra good mood today, greeting his keeper and the dozens of visitors who ooh and ah.
That panda is eating all the delicious fruit. I want to get some for Chuseok too.
The ring-tailed lemurs are also getting some treats. It's up to the zookeeper, who's wearing the traditional Korean hanbok, to make sure they all get to enjoy the feast. It's fun for the visitors to watch the animals find, play with, and eat their treats.
We're doing this to celebrate Thanksgiving and have some fun with the animals living here at the zoo. We've set up some special ways to feed them, like the gujeolpan and putting bananas in the hay.
The treats are different from each species. Elephants get bundles of hay decorated with fruits and vegetables, which they gather around and put their snouts in. The zoo is located in Yongin, Gyeonggi-do Province, and is home to more than 1,600 animals. The pre-Chuseok feast has been a pleasure for the animals and the zoogoers alike. Ji-young, Arirang News.
And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.
"2019 has been a big year for international diplomacy in Korea, and there are profound exchanges happening between different nations every day. With a focus on cooperation and exchange, the show seeks to reinforce relationships between Korea and the world. Join us as we connect with foreign ambassadors to better understand Korean politics, economy, culture, and more. The Diplomat. How is the fourth industrial revolution changing various industries in Korea? By exploring various domestic economic patterns and scientific advancements, we'll get a glimpse at how trends in Korea may spread all around the world. We'll bring you a full analysis on the outlook of the future and how Korea will be the center of this change. Money Monster. Global content creators from all around the world have collaborated with Arirang TV to introduce every inch of Korea. Come on an exciting adventure to experience the live energy on each trip. The creators will also broadcast and share their trips live on their individual channels, so don't miss Travel Agency Season 2.
I know it feels like you're
Whoa, look, we can see what's under us.
Oh, we're done fighting.
Change up, change up, change.
Oh my god.
A for Agency, Season 2. Power Rangers.